Who's that person that you wonder if they still think about you? What's your story with them? I could list a few former loves and a ton of friends I've drifted with, but the biggest one is probably the NICU nurse who was there for a whole day with my son before he passed. She was so kind to us, me, my husband and my son, when there was nothing left they could do for him, and we took him off of all the support he was on, and he passed. She gave us time alone. But when we were ready to go, I saw she had been crying too. She hugged me and told me that I was a good mom. So far he is my only child, and she is one of a handful of people who has called me a mom. On the worst day of our lives she just was so kind. Thank you, Ashley. This boy in my 8th grade algebra class saw that I got a 38% on a test. ABD he got a 98% and offered his help in the sweetest way. He told me he got a 0 on a test once and his dad had worked with him. He got the hang of it and now he's really good at. A 13-year-old boy was better at teaching me math than my math teacher, who seemed to get kind of peeved about him helping me. When we graduated, we went to different high schools and he gave me his watch and told me he just didn't want me to forget him. I didn't. Edit, not a romantic thing. We did stay in touch for a little bit then just drifted. Maybe I was too young to see a crush being had, but it's really irrelevant since the memory revolves around the fact that I suck at math, and in a moment of feeling shitty he extended more compassion than most adults in my life combined ever have when it comes to my challenges with math. It sucks to just not get something, no matter how hard you try. Not me but my wife. We were visiting LA and went to the Comedy Store because I always wanted to go, and the lineup looked killer that evening. During the show my wife got up to use the restroom. When she came back she told me some punk nerdy dude tried to cut her in line to use the bathroom, and she told him to get his ass to the end of the line. 5 minutes later the dude who tried to cut her came up to the stage and she pointed him out to me. It was John Mulaney lol. I wonder if he remembers a small Mexican girl telling him no cut size. TL. Dr. John Mulaney tried to cut my wife in line for the restroom. She told him to beat it bozo. I knew a kid in elementary school who had really bad anger problems. He went to anger management classes and the other kids bullied him for it, but he was always nice to me and we had some things in common, so we hung out a bit at school. Shortly after getting to know him my dad was transferred across the country. He's Navy. Before I left he invited me over to his house and gave me a cake that he baked and a necklace with a ring on it that said best friends. We had only spent a bit of time together but his mum told me I had a big impact on him. I still have the necklace and think about him sometimes, and I wonder if he thinks about me. We were little and he doesn't have a keepsake from me. I hope he's doing well. 7 years ago I was mid-mental breakdown a few days after a rather traumatic event happened to me. I never took the bus anywhere other than from my high school to home at the time. I went to the park to drink till it was pretty late, and when I went to go to the bus, I went the other way to a relatively empty train station. Other than me, there was only an old woman standing on the other side of the platform for a train heading the other way. I stood at the front end of the station waiting for the train to come through so I could throw myself in front of it. Just as the sign announcing the station changed to mark its incoming, I guess the old lady was watching me and realized what I was doing. She pulled me back as I was stepping forward. She couldn't speak English, but she yelled at me anyway and started crying. She hugged me then got on the next train heading the other way, and I left and went home. I always think about her. I'm thankful every day for her, and I hope she's doing well. She was my best friend, my childhood friend. When she left to a country across the world, when we were both around 10, she gave me her email address. I emailed her at least 10 different times, but she never replied. 6 years later, this year, I heard she's on Instagram. I made an Instagram account for the sole purpose of contacting her. I followed her, and she accepted my request, and it's wonderful to see she's having an amazing time. She's popular, she's beautiful, she's surrounded by friends. I tried direct messaging her, and she never replied. I waited a few months and tried again, but still no reply. It's kind of stupid but it really hurt, so I deleted my Instagram account and now I try not to think about her. Edit. Thank you to everyone who replied sharing similar experiences and condolences. I'm sorry that you lost touch with your friends as well. Hope you feel okay. Also, because someone asked, I'm a girl. My ex-fiancée. She caught me doing drugs and quickly dumped me. I just wonder how she turned out and think she'd like how I turned my life around. First serious girlfriend. I realized later in life that every other girl I dated was attractive to me merely because she resembled the first one in some way. I was basically chasing after something I could never have again, and those relationships always ended because they were never her. It wasn't until the 5th relationship collapsed that I realized the pattern I was following. Shortly thereafter, I met the woman who would become my wife, broke the pattern, and learned how to be happy. Still, I hate the fact that the breakup with the first girlfriend went so shitty. Neither of us knew how to do that, and so the only way we could break up was for it to go really shitty. Not restraining order shitty, just said some unforgivably mean and nasty things to each other shitty. But still, no hope of ever being friends. No possibility that a Facebook "Hey, it's been 30 years, how was your life?" message would ever be returned. No calling up a mutual acquaintance and asking if I've ever been a subject of conversation over the years. Just an utter and permanent termination of a nearly 6-year relationship that everyone around us thought was forever. My only hope is that she did have a great life with lots of friends, kids, family and awesome experiences, and that maybe she remembers that good stuff more than the bad. A guy from high school who was for all intents and purposes my best friend. Things happened in my 11th year and I left that school and moved interstate, so we didn't talk as much. By the time I moved back closer, we'd only talk maybe 4 times a year despite living close-ish. I later moved away again, so pretty much all contact stopped. We've added each other on Steam, but neither of us messages each other anymore. Even though I can talk to him right now, I never do. We are strangers now, and every few months I think about him and if I should message him, and I wonder how much he's changed. I do wonder if he ever thinks about messaging me. As a Target cashier, I greeted someone with "Here's your receipt." I wonder if that customer thinks about it as much as I do. I tend to form strong attachments to people I care about, yet some of them seem to find it very easy to fade away whilst my strong attachment remains. I've always wondered how often I pop into the minds of these people. After closing the restaurant I work at, as I was about to leave, I noticed an older conversion van in the front of the parking lot with 2 people who ended up being mother and son, mid-20s, arguing. So I walked up to them. He was mad and mom was threatening to call the cops and have him taken in because of his anger. What started this was the son flew in from Co to pick up the van to live in back in Co as a temp home due to the fire at the time near his actual home. But once he got there, mom changed her mind. They didn't have the best relationship, and apparently this is how they argued, solved problems. Anyway, I told him I was going to the bar for a drink by myself and would go regardless if he came with or not, and I'd lend an ear if he wanted to chat rant. He didn't, and I hung out on the patio for a couple hours, ending up having a great time. He managed to get a hold of an old friend who came and picked him up to help him get back home. I can't remember the name of the park he lived near, but said there were massive, beautiful gears, and once he got back on his feet again after the fires, he'd get a hold of me and send me one. I don't expect that to happen, but would be a cool ass gift with an interesting story attached. This was only a couple months ago, but I still wonder how everything worked out for him and hope he's doing good. He was down on his luck, but overall a cool, genuine dude. I was newly single and had to go to Italy for a doctor's appointment. Long story, but I had to take one in Italy in order to be allowed on a ship. The doctor was absolutely gorgeous and couldn't speak English, and we had all these giggles while she showed me these stretches and positions I needed to be in for the exam. We went out later that night and she showed me a great time around town, and I never saw her again. So, I've never actually met this person. I'm 28 now, and when I was 13 to 15 or so I had this feather pillow. I had it for a while, probably about 2 or more years, and one night, when I was trying to lay down, and while smushing it into a comfy shape I heard a crinkling. I didn't think much of it, figured it was a label or something and laid down. This pillow kept ducking crinkling. I took off the pillowcase to see if some bit of plastic was in there or something, but I didn't find anything. Laid back down without the case on, and every slight movement produced a mosquito in your room annoyance level crinkle. Picked up the pillow and started poking and prodding and smushing and squishing it, trying to reproduce this crinkle. I finally did, and then I found that it felt like there was something in the pillow, like a wrapper or some sheet in my pillow. So I cut it open and dug through the feathers to find a ducking instant noodle wrapper from China. I like to think that some ducking Chinese dude worked at a pillow factory and decided to put a bit of garbage into a pillow to have a laugh with his workmates. I'd also like to think that it was a one-time thing and that I won one of the most pointless lotteries ever, like some sort of sheety message in a bottle. But there's no denying that this random China guy and me are connected, and sometimes I wonder what they're like and how their life has been thus far. Maybe they're dead, maybe they got a better job, maybe they're an expat in some country, maybe I've passed them on the street. It's fun to wonder. I'm sure that if we met we'd accomplish great things together. Point is that I think about that Methodika a few times a year, and when I do I wonder if he thinks about me too, or if I, the person on the opposite end of his joke, on the opposite end of the globe, am just as discarded as the wrapper from his lunch. I was a cashier at a grocery store when I was 16. One day these two little boys, one was about 9 and the other was about 5, came in and tried to buy a few cans of chili. They didn't have enough money for them, and they got really embarrassed and left. I tried to tell them I would just buy the chili for them, but they dashed out. I kept their cans at my till in case they came back, but they never did. I think about those kids all the time. They were so sweet and respectful and cute, and seemed excited about their purchase, and then got so upset when they didn't have enough. It broke my heart at 16, and still makes me sad now. I hope wherever they are they're okay and happy. When I was in Montessori, probably about 4 years old, I was absolutely in love with a little boy named David Redacted. Apparently, we were quite the topic of the mom's circle. We had a show until one day, and I said "This is for you, David," and belted out the chorus to "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston. I'm not sure how far I got, but I remember really getting that and I remember just being so infatuated with him, but had no memories of much else regarding him. Going through old pictures with my mom, and we found a class picture from then. So of course it came up. As she remembers it, he had a little crush on me too. So I wonder if he ever thinks of that very exuberant little girl. I know the lost love thing is kind of trite, but mine is this girl I dated for about a month earlier this year. Met her on Tinder, kinda half-assed the start of the conversation, cause it's Tinder, and she actually called me on it. We had great text conversation for a week or two before we decided to meet up in person. Went to a concert together, and it was wonderful. Went on some sort of date type thing every weekend for the next month or so. Now, I knew that she didn't want anything serious, and when I met her, I didn't either. But this happened fairly soon after a bad breakup I went through. She was the first person, and especially the first woman, that I had felt completely comfortable and deeply happy around for a long time. So I fell really hard for her. I was dropping her off at home one night after we'd spent the evening together, and I told her, "I really like you." Didn't say anything else, thought I kept it pretty light. But she looked at me and, as gently as possible, told me she didn't want to get serious, but that she did like me and wanted me in her life. Gave me a kiss and walked inside. I held together until I turned off her street. Then I had to pull over because I was crying so hard. Not because she didn't feel the same about me, but because I somehow knew I would never see her again, and she was a great friend if nothing else. She stopped responding to my texts not long after. Sometimes I think of ways I could try to see her again. We didn't separate on bad terms, as far as I could tell, and I wonder if maybe she wants to see me too. But I can't think of any way I could get in touch without seeming threatening and clingy. I miss her a lot. Haven't been the same person since. Let's call him Jordan, because that's his name. His mum passed away when he was young. I think it was cancer. I went to school with him. I started running when I decided to cut out some negative habits from my life. and shortly after, I asked Jordan if he wanted to come running with me. We'd go run laps together after school at a track and talk about the episode of My Name is Earl that we just watched and what life lessons we learned from it. I want to say we also talked about the idea from the show that Earl's trying to make the world a better place. I'm sure any runner knows what an amazing experience it is. We ran through the whole winter. We were able to increase our endurance a lot more, and we eventually started running around streets all over the neighborhood. Had a lot of really great talks. We never missed a single day. Haven't seen him in a few years. Hoping all is well with you, friend. Wishing you all the best. You're a real strong guy. Does it mean I was in love with him if I keep hoping to see him posting about me on here? This is an open message to all the people whose friends never hit them up unless they reach out to them. If any of you are in the Torrance, Long Beach, Cerritos, Southgate vicinity, it's a pretty large area, hit me up for a beer sometime. Doesn't have to be a beer, can be pool, a bite to eat, a concert, small or large venue, could be an escape room or a hookah lounge, or just a day hike. Send me a message. I always like meeting new people, while a lot of us are happy having our alone time and unwinding. Sometimes you just don't want to be at home alone on a frizz at night. Seriously, send me a message. Edit. This is in Southern California in the States, since some of you said I should mention the location. I live pretty close to the middle of the area I put. If you live a bit further away, someone mentioned Irvine, I'm more than down to try something out there, or somewhere in between. First off, goddamn you to hell up for asking this. To answer, the Giles, the Vietnamese family that took me in, a strung out 17-year-old meth addict that was at the end of his rope. Literally, the daughter was QUI, and when she found me, I was at the big park at the suburb I stayed at, tying a noose. Honestly, that park was ducking huge. I don't know how she ran across me, as I was pretty far out on the trails. She was not afraid at all. I've been used to people crossing streets to avoid me, as I was a ducking skeleton from shooting dope and never eating. She asked me what I was doing. I told her killing myself. I remember she had perfect English, almost no trace of an accent. She sat down and talked with me for over an hour. She then asked if I was hungry, which I was. She took me to her home not even 5 minutes away. At her home I met her dad, who I only ever called Mr. Giles. He told me his first name, but I remember going yep, never gonna remember that one. His English was kinda broken, but legible. They fed me, let me shower, gave me some sweats as QU I washed my clothes. Mr. Giles asked if I wanted help, which I told him honestly I did. He told me to get in the car. I remember QUI giving me a hug as he drove me to the ER. For detox and having tears in her eyes, but a smile on her face. Spent 90 days in rehab and got pitch help and even a doubt. I went to the same house not even a week after I got out and there was a realtor sign out front. The house completely empty. I knocked on the neighbor, which was a complete ducking mistake, as the fat redneck duck told me them damn chinks went home. Got his face. I still wanna smash him to this day. Mr. Giles, or QUI, if you ever read this, my name wasn't Seth. I'm sorry I lied to you. And thank you. I relapsed then, but I got clean, and I'm almost 6 years sober today. TLDR, Vietnamese people are awesome. My ex's family. We were together on and off for over 7 years, and during that time I became ridiculously close with his family. I stayed with them often. I went on trips with them. I hung out with them when my ex wasn't home. The last year we were together I was a bridesmaid in his sister's wedding. For multiple reasons the relationship ended badly. The worst part however, was that when I went home for Christmas that year, both of our families lived in a different city than where we lived. His sister had to meet up with me, and essentially break up with me a second time. It's been 2 years since we split, and while I don't think about him often, I think about his family a lot. They ended up moving closer to the city where I live. I wonder what they think of me, if they even still do. More than ever I wish I was able to get proper closure with them, but for reasons I don't want to risk contacting them again. They helped me through the roughest period of my life, and I still wish I could properly thank them for it. This isn't exactly positive, but I accidentally wrapped $50 into a present box for the gift exchange at church. I have no idea who got it, but I wonder if they are out there wondering who sent it. Oof. All these are very meaningful. I honestly just hope my ex's dog still thinks about me like I think about it. My first love. We dated for 2 weeks, then just on and off hookups over the next 10 years. He would cheat on so many girlfriends with me unbeknownst to me. I tried pressuring him to actually date me, but there was always an excuse and always a next girlfriend. Put up with it cause I was so in love with him, didn't see what a piece of shit he was, and I had low self-esteem. Finally called it quits after a booty call and a breakdown when his pregnant girlfriend walked in on us. I didn't know about her. He's married now. I have a feeling it was totally one-sided, like I was so broken up about not being with him, but I wonder if he ever thinks about me.